Recording. So now you're being recorded. Okay. Hi. Yes. Thank you, Robin, so much. Thank you for having me here tonight. Thanks for all of this participation. I work at Amazing Place. Is anybody familiar with Amazing Place and what we do? So Amazing Place is a Houston nonprofit. We're faith-based, non-denominational, and we serve families with the challenges of dementia and Alzheimer's. So that's our main theme and our main mission. And we do that. We have a day program for people that are diagnosed with mild to moderate dementia. They come to our day program in Houston. We're open 5 days a week, 7:30 to 6. Nobody spends the night. And the minute our program, we have a core curriculum of exercise, self-expression. We do a lot of word games, just anything cognitively stimulating you can think of. That's what we do all day for our people diagnosed. For our caregivers, this dementia does not just afflict the person with dementia, it also impacts the caregivers and the families. So we provide caregiver respite, and then we also do a lot of caregiver education, because it's a journey when you're providing care for somebody. So in addition to all of the caregiver education, our day program, we also do a lot of community events such as this. And about 7 years ago, I went out to UCLA and I was trained to be a memory trainer. It was a 2-day course. This course was developed after 20 years of research by Dr. Gary Small and his team at the Longevity Center. So I did it virtual all during the pandemic. This is the first virtual class I've had in 2 years now, so it's kind of fun to do this virtual again. I'm pretty much in person in Houston at our sponsor churches. So that's where I usually am doing it in person. So before we begin, I just want everybody to take a deep breath in case you're not sure what you signed up for. There's not going to be any spelling tests. There's not going to be any long division, no serial sevens, nothing like that. This class is truly designed, I like to say, for people north of 50 that are just wondering, I meet somebody on Monday and by Thursday, I cannot remember their name. This class is designed for people that are just, where's my keys? Where's my wallet? Where's my phone? Where's the remote? All these kinds of things that we are constantly looking for. The course is designed for people who are on the cell phone taking an appointment, making an appointment or scheduling an appointment, and you're distracted, you're driving, and you put the phone down and you have no idea what time where you're supposed to be, or whether it's Wednesday or Tuesday at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock. And then lastly, the course is designed for that very common, it's called tip of the tongue. You're with a group of people and you just cannot recall the Netflix series you've been watching for the last 5 days. You can describe it, everybody in it, but you just can't get it out. So that's where if any of those meet what you want, that's what this course is about. And so through the course, I'm going to introduce strategies, several different strategies that you could adopt, and to just simple little strategies to help you, because what you're experiencing is what we just call normal aging changes. And it's very important, if you're going to compare your memory, make sure you compare it to your peer group. You don't compare your memory to 30-year-olds and 40-year-olds anymore. You got to stay with your peer group. So that's why the course is just for people 50 and older. So is everybody on board then? All good? You're all good. Okay. For those of you that are just joining us, if you could put your camera on, this is a pretty interactive. It really helps to see people so we can see faces, because that's kind of one of the first brain boosting exercises we do in this class. So those of you that did get some handouts, there was one called a summary session 1. It's a lot of material. Okay. So You don't have to write a thing down. Everything I covered tonight is on that summary session. So, but if you like to take notes, go ahead. That's fine. No problem. So we'll meet for the next 2 hours. I don't have any scheduled breaks, but if you want to take a break, that's fine, no problem. But we'll just keep right on going. And it does move pretty fast. Like I said, it's pretty interactive. And the more you interact, the more you will, get out of the course. Some of the techniques I teach tonight might come easier to others. Some might be a little more challenging, but that's okay. My goal today is that you just adopt one new technique. That would be great, and incorporate it into your life. That would be a very good goal and outcome. So the first exercise that we do in class, it's a little more challenging online because you guys all have your names up there. And my guess is, do y'all know each other since you're at the same church? Okay. So in person, what we do is nobody wears a name tag but me in class. And we start the brain boosting techniques by people go around the room, the attendees go around the room, they introduce themselves, first name only. And while they're talking, it's the job of the other folks to really look at them, really listen, look at their face. Is there a facial feature that you can quickly associate with their name? Is there something they share about their name that they could quickly associate with? So the whole idea is the reason we're not able to, that we're having troubles with names and faces is we're not just paying attention. So we need to take time. We need to be intentional with what we're hearing. So in class, again, people go around, introduce themselves, say why they're taking the course, and they just share a little bit more about them. The other strategy that I like is for if someone introduces themselves, it's very helpful in the class if someone says, oh, that name belongs to my brother-in-law, or that name is, somebody, a cousin. So it's just something that you can connect with. For example, I always share this. I had a gentleman that's name was Clarence, and I could not think of an association for Clarence. But somebody in the class said, oh, that's a clearance sale. I was like, oh, clearance sale. So he was, I know exactly where he's at, everything to this day. So he was a clearance sale, and in person, I do this for 4 weeks. So over 4 weeks, he was a clearance sale. But that's what I mean. So I'll just start. And again, I know we all have our names, but I'll give you an idea, a flavor of it. Is my name's Sally. And for those of you that there's a famous song called Mustang Sally. So if you could see me, I have red hair. I do move around a lot in class. I'm walking all over. So you could think of me as a Mustang, a horse, just taken wild during class, and think of Mustang Sally. Another tip I did is my maiden name is short, and they used to call me Strawberry Shortcake. Again, the red hair, the freckles, etc. So that's kind of what we do, and that the whole reason we share that is we're just trying to make an association. So I'm going to start with Nancy. Nancy, if you'll just share a little bit why you're taking the class, and again, and then your job, the other people, your job is to just kind of, share, look at Nancy, see if there's a characteristic that you see, and so you would remember her the next time you see her.
Okay, I'm Nancy Vernal, and I once realized that my first name is Nancy, my middle name is Jane. So I'm not only Fancy Nancy, but I'm plain Jane. And I'm more like plain Jane, I think.
I like that.
Is that okay?
I love that. And I immediately went to Nancy Drew.
Oh, okay. That's
but
true.
I do like Fancy Nancy.
Yeah.
I do like that. And the other thing that's helpful too is if you have a name that like Anne, you can always, ANN, no E, like spell it. That's, again, you're giving more information. It's just something. So, okay. Well, thanks, Nancy. Anybody else? Ann Lyon.
Well, for some reason, my name is Ann Lyonnaise on here, Lyonnaise. Where that came from, I do not know. It's Lyon and no E.
But you're Ann with no E.
Yeah.
She's Ann with no E. Does anybody else have another association for Ann?
Lyonnaise looks like mayonnaise.
I know. Do you like mayonnaise?
I do.
Oh, good. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Okay. So, Margaret, can you hear us?
Yeah. I can't.
Okay. So do you have a, just want to tell us a little bit about why you're taking the class?
Say again. Say again. Say again.
Oh, introduce yourself while you're taking the class.
They help me remember things.
Well, I'm going to remember you because it's Princess Margaret. You're going to be my
Well,
princess. I always have a queen, a king, or a princess in my classes.
Okay.
I love that. Okay.
Well, my
with-
full name is Margaret.
That means
Yeah.
And okay, so Marty.
yes. Oh,
Marty and Linda, met her. Always remember, well, it's not meter, it's metter. Better with
Ah!
metter.
Well, my
And,
name is Margaret Mitchell.
Oh,
Margaret
Gone with the
Mitchell.
Wind.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's how people remember me. But
I like that
I'm
better.
having trouble with the iPad.
So Marty and Linda Meter.
thank you, metter. Better with metter.
Better.
they've gone.
Marty. So why are Linda? Why are you taking the class? Just give me a little bit more. Give me a little more story so I can make a.
Because Marty signed me up for
Yeah.
it.
And Sally, two things. One, you listed, I think, 4 or 5, can't remember, at the very beginning of things you forget to do, you know. All of those apply to me, not Linda, but to me. And then also as a program note, we have to disappear at 7 o'clock. So I didn't want to be rude and just go all of
Okay,
a
no
sudden.
problem. Thank you.
Not a reflection on what's
Well,
going on.
I have to share that typically it's the wife that brings the husband to class. This is the first. So you're
Nice.
good. You're in a good spot, Linda. You're good.
Good.
You're good. Okay, Kathy B. Hi, Kathy.
I've never really thought of any way to remember my name, but I always end up introducing myself as Kathy with a C because everybody is
Right.
lots of people with a K in my age group and otherwise. And I'm taking this because, well, I've noticed a little bit of slip of things in some of my memories, but one thing I always have a problem. I go into a room, I go, why did I go into this room? Then I go back out, then I go back in, I go, oh yeah. And I even got a shirt years ago that says, I know I came into this room for a reason. So it's just something to, that's one of my problems. And also remembering names. I have a hard time with that because I'm
Yeah.
not paying close enough attention.
And really that's the crux of it is you have to decide, you have to pay attention and you have to make information meaningful.
Audio.
Thank you, Kathy with the C. Connie.
So I go along with Marty. Everything on that list matched me. So I thought maybe this is a course I should take. All I can think of is everyone, when I introduce myself as Connie, they'll always say, well, you are Constance. And I say, no, I am not Constance. I am Connie.
Ah,
And I've even had someone tell me, well, your mother didn't know what she was doing. But anyway, it's Connie, not Constance.
that's funny. I love that. Connie, not Constance. Okay. All right. Joe Lynn.
I was born with a nice Southern double name.
Yeah.
And most people, when they hear Joe, they automatically add Ann. So I usually always have to say, I'm Jolynn, not Joanne.
That'd be true. I'm sure people want to call you Joanne, so that's good. So you're
And I'm taking the
cautioning them.
class because I'm one of those people north of 50.
North of 50. Yes, yes, yes. Very important to stay with. Okay, thank you. And Chris?
Chris, I'm Chris Can, and it sounds like a cereal, like Captain Crunch or something, and that's all I can think of. Chris Can, it's very alliterative.
Does anybody else have any association for Chris? Anybody have a Chris Can cereal, Captain Crunch? Okay, love it. Okay, Mary. Oh, we have a Mary Ann.
I'm taking the course because I want to preserve what I can remember.
Very good. Very good objective.
Like Jolynn, I am a Southern Belle. And when I go to doctors, because Medicare doesn't allow you to have a middle name, it's an initial. And so I tell them that if I go into a coma, do not try to wake up Mary. She does not live in this body. It is Mary Ann.
It's Mary Ann.
And the first thing that I think of is down by the seaside sifting sand.
Yeah, rhyming is very powerful.
And I was born in Florida on the coast.
Oh, perfect. So we just have you right there on the coast and the sand. Oh, I love that. Thank you. That's great. Thank you. Joyce?
She unmute. I'm also north of 50. I don't know about I don't know. I don't really have a.
Does anybody
I don't know.
Joyce?
Oh, I can think of a childhood song.
What was the song? Songs are good.
From church camp. I've got the joy, 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 joy down in my heart, right?
Yeah. See, that's
There
great.
you go.
And that's what you can, you know, you're going to learn too, when you, another way we remember information is if it's attached with an emotion. And many of us, those of us that did go to camp usually have good feelings about camp and singing at camp. So that's a real good, feel good kind of joy, joy. Yes, that was a very, very famous song. Thank you. That's great. Anita, do you want to come off camera, or Laura Shipman? If not, that's fine. We will move on. Oh, there's Anita and Laura. Awesome.
Yes.
Hi, Anita.
I can. I'm here. I just have the family eating dinner and nobody
I
needs
know.
to be around that. So sorry.
I
When
shooed
they
mine
go,
off.
then yes. So I don't really have much of a story about my name, except I know that I was given the name Anita because my mom hated that her name always had nicknames. And Anita was the one name she could think of that didn't have a nickname.
Yep. I hear that a lot.
So there's that. And I'm taking this because I am north of 50. And if I have so much going on. If I don't write every single thing down, it doesn't happen. And daily things are not happening.
Right.
So
right. Well, I
that.
hope I can assure you why that's happening to all of us.
Awesome.
And we'll figure out some other ways. And then Laura, you are with us. Thank you.
I am. Ellen might be joining us too, who knows? My name is Laura, and I don't have really a good nickname for me. Hi, Ellen.
Hi, Ellen.
When I was little, we used to give ourselves like Laura Lippy Low Lust was my my family little, I don't know why my brothers and sisters started saying that, but my maiden name was easier because Derringer. So it's like Derringer, like the gun.
Yeah, right,
My
right.
last name now, sometimes we say Shipman with no T because occasionally a T has fallen in that place of a P. But other than that, I don't have anything else I can think of.
Well, thank you. Yes, that's a very pretty name. In class, when we do this exercise, you know, the next time people come back to class is we ask them to switch spots. Because it's, you know, we tend to learn also by location. So we kind of make it a little more challenging the next week where they go around and we ask someone to share name. And then we also ask now try to tell us who's not here today, which is even more challenging because they're not there, but seriously, by learning by location, there's something very powerful about location. Well, thanks for doing that. And right now I'm going to share my screen. So you all let me know if this looks good to you guys. Can you guys see it?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay. All right. So we're going to go. Okay. One of the handouts you received is called your learning style assessment. It should look like this. Do y'all see something, a learning style assessment that looks like that?
Yeah.
Okay. So what this is it's important to understand that people come to this training with very different learning styles. People learn information by looking, by visual. People learn information more by auditory, and then people learn by doing, which is what we call tactile learning. Everybody has a primary learning style, and everybody could have a very close secondary learning style. So on this assessment that looks like this, there are 3 columns. Column 1 is all of the ways you learn visually. Column 2 is auditory, and column 3 is tactile. So we'll do the first one together. And what it says is, I learn best when I take notes or draw pictures and diagrams. If you feel that meets you, then you put an X. The next one says, I learn best by listening and talking through things. If you think that fits you, you put an X. I learn best by doing. I like the hands-on approach. So you can only have 1 X per row. And then when you're done answering all those questions, you're going to have a column score. The highest column score is your primary learning style. The second highest is your secondary learning style. So so what I want you to do is take the next 2 minutes to complete the learning style assessment so we can learn what your primary learning style is. Does everybody understand? Everybody good? Okay, I'm going to set my little alarm for 2 minutes. And we'll come back.
No. Don't cringe, Marty.
Okay, so who was surprised about their learning style? How many of you were primary visual? Were you surprised, Nancy? You're mute. Yeah.
Okay, I always think of myself as primary auditory, but I had more visual.
Is
in
that
this
true for anybody
particular-
else?
Yes, more visual.
Did anybody score auditory or tactile? Is anybody, I had a couple tactiles. Okay.
I had 3 and 3.
Oh, you
in
did? Okay.
Visual, tactile.
Yeah, some people are very close. Yep, yep. I always call my tactile learners the people that can throw away the IKEA instructions. They just do it. They just get right down to it. Yeah, for me, I thought I was very much visual, but I was a very strong auditory when I took this test. I was very strong that way. So I was a little surprised by my results, but through the years of teaching this, I've had people come all the way across, very strong. Usually there's a primary, and then usually there's a heavy secondary. And the whole reason we do this is so that as we're teaching you skills, you're going to understand that, oh, this is maybe why I'm better at these techniques, because I'm more visual. So that's just a fun little assessment to do. Next, I'm going to pivot a little bit, and I'm going to talk about actually why it's important to know how your memory works before we get into techniques. It's important to understand how your memory works. How do we take in information in order to understand what's going on with us right now? So memory, taking in information, is a dynamic process. It involves learning something new, right? You have to learn something new. You have to store that information permanently. If you need to store it permanently, you have to store it permanently, and then you have to retrieve it. I mean, that's happening all the time. All right. So learning something new, storing it, and then we got to retrieve it. That is a dynamic process. Anywhere along that stage of learning, we can get disrupted. So I'm going to share my screen and show you this beautiful little diagram to help kind of explain it more in a more visual. You see my brain picture? You see that? Okay, so the first stage, this is how memory works. This is how we bring in information. The first stage is what we call sensory memory. Information enters our 5 senses. We either see things, we hear things, we taste, we smell, or we touch. And it leaves a trace, just a trace, a second or two, that's just right coming at us with all the information flooding our senses every second. It's difficult to notice or remember what we want to. So in order to take in the information, because it's happening so much, all of this, you have to first pay attention. If we would all just pay attention, and you have to pay attention, and then you have to decide, is this important enough for me to remember? Okay, so again, this phone right here, I'm sure you all have one. This is a huge distraction. It can be our friend, but it's also our distraction. And so we're bombarded with information all the time. We have to pay attention, and then we have to decide, do I need to know that? And if I need to know that information, then I have to put it in my short-term memory. That's the next step on this diagram. So for example, say your friend tells you, I'm going to be at this phone number, this phone number, 876-1776. That's the phone number where your friend is. It's only going to register for a second or two, and then you're going to forget it, unless you've decided, I need to know this. I'm going to pay attention to this, and I'm going to make this meaningful. So just hold on to that number, 876-1776, because you've decided you need to know that. So where's it going to go? It's going to go into that short term. That short-term memory is what we call our working memory. And it's a temporary holding tank. You are going to say that number over and over and over again until you no longer need it, and then you'll dump it. Or you're going to decide, no, this number is a number I need to know, and I'm going to put it in my long term. Now that happens in 2 minutes, that whole process, very quickly. So that's why it's so important to pay attention. The piece with the short-term memory that I want to share with you is the short-term memory only holds 7 bits of information. So if I asked all of you what your childhood phone numbers were, I'm sure you all could remember them. They were 7 digits. Now it's 10 digits. And we all have this. So we don't need to know them anymore, but we did. This class is designed to help the short-term memory, because this is where north of 50, this is where we're impacted and affected, is right here. Our processing slows down as we get older. We're not as attentive as we once were. And on top of it, we become more distracted. All right. So the phone makes us distracted and we become more distracted. So it's the short-term memory. Everything I'm going to teach you tonight is to enhance that, because that's where that's just the challenges. So I want you to think of your short-term memory as a muscle, and we're going to exercise it. That's what we're going to do. Okay, so that's the short-term memory. The long-term memory is for holding those childhood memories, storing information permanently. This is where you create images, create little stories so you can retrieve information. But the long-term memory is where we decide, okay, that phone number, I need to know it. So I'm going to do some kind of creative image. I'm going to say it over and over until I remember it. But that's the long-term memory. And the more creative we store our information, the easier it is to retrieve. Remember, we have to retrieve the information. So back to that phone number, 876-1776. Who can put meaning to that? What is the meaning to that? Does anybody have a?
This is Kathy. I saw I wrote it down because I'm very visual, and then you have 1776. I think of American Revolution, and then 876 is decreasing numbers, so it could rhyme, right. But 876, 17 in America. So
right, and so you were, because of that, I wanted y'all to remember it. You were intentional.
Yeah.
So you were intentional, and you tried to come up with something, a story or something. So because numbers on their own are very arbitrary. They don't have meaning to us. We have to put meaning to them. So for example, when I took this class, it dawned on me, I did not know my husband's phone number. And I thought, this is ridiculous. I mean, horrible, it's just silly. So I had to create a story. And to this day, it is the only way I remember his phone number. And it's 713. I can remember that, thank goodness. And it's 302. Well, that was my first apartment, was 302. The last four are 7310. Well, 7 plus 3 is 10. So he's 1010. So that's what and to this day, that's how I remember the phone number. But I had to decide to remember it. And then I had to create some story. And it wasn't going to help him creating the story for me. I had to create the story. So that's what some of our challenges are as we get older, north of 50. But the other piece that I want to share is, remember, you have to decide if you want to remember that. So you have, there's so much information bombarding us, we can't possibly remember everything. So give yourself some grace. If there's something you don't want to remember, fine. You don't have to remember everything, but you must remember what is important to you so that you are confident. That's the other thing, having the story for the phone number. I am very confident I will always remember that phone number. And that's and it's same with the names. There, it's really nice going into a networking situation and you're confident that you know who you're going to see. It just builds confidence. And that's really important. So the other way with bringing in information and remembering things, emotion. So remembering dates, facts, names, if it brings in an emotion, like Joyce shared that, the camp song, that's an emotion. Anything, any kind of information with an emotion, we tend to remember. For example, 9/11, the Challenger, maybe our weddings, anniversaries, our children being born, those are great height emotions, and we can remember those. The same goes for, and that's what's back to my folks at Amazing Place with cognitive decline, sensory memory, that first holding tank I showed you. Sensory memory stays around for a very long time. So if I brought in a plate of chocolate chip cookies, warm right out of the oven, everybody has a memory of that. My folks at Amazing Place, it will unlock memories they haven't even thought of in a long time. But it's the emotion. So anytime you're taking in information, use your senses, especially on vacation. What does it look like? What does it smell like? What are the people saying? What am I hearing? All that helps. Really important to bring in emotion. And I always like to share, like back to the networking. It's very interesting that after an event or some engagement, you always tend to remember the most annoying person there. Well, the reason you do is because you had an emotion with it. So that's why that happens. So bring in those feelings. The other thing I'll say with people with cognitive decline, long-term memory sticks around for a very long time as well. It's the short-term memory that my folks at Amazing Place no longer have. They can't take in new information. They can't learn anything. Their learning is not as the short-term memory is what's impacted. But with that long-term memory, the long-term memory also is responsible for what we call procedural memory. So for instance, driving a car, do y'all know what silver alerts are?
Yep.
Okay, well, that's why we have silver alerts. We have silver alerts because they still know how to drive a car. They get lost because they don't know where they started from. That's what that is. So that's why they're extremely vulnerable. Extremely vulnerable, because they look like, they look very functional because they don't look sick, but it's that short-term memory that makes it very, very hard. So just give yourself some grace, is knowing that north of 50, it's short-term memory that we're trying to keep really, really sharp. And I'll share with you one of my frustrations, and I have not learned a way around it. I've asked in all the classes, but the phone, for example. So for example, I pick up the phone and I have an intention to do something, whether it's texting, making a phone call, making a list, but I get distracted by what's on there. Maybe there's a text message from somebody, maybe someone's called me. So what I find myself doing is I attend to that business put my phone down and realize I didn't do what I wanted to do. It's a very common. So we have to be very intentional about when we pick up our phones. If we want them to help us, we must do our business first. Because if you don't, you probably will forget because you're distracted. And it's the distraction that's just not our friend. So that's kind of the science behind the class. That's why we're all feeling like we're losing our minds. It just really has to do with the fact our short-term memory is just more challenged. So that's where we are. So the way we in the class is we measure memory 2 different ways. So we measure memory you should have a handout called the Memory Awareness Questionnaire. And I'll share my screen again, show you what it looks like. It looks like this. The Memory Awareness Questionnaire. I'll go ahead and send it back out if you didn't get it, because I'll let y'all do this for homework, but I'll just set it up for you that this is a perception of your memory. This is how you perceive your memory, this questionnaire. So what I'd like you to do when you take this is ask yourself that top question. How often do these present a problem for me? And then you read each 10 statements and you'll circle between 1 and 7. 1 means it's always a problem and 7 means it's never a problem. And on the back of the form is the question is how you score it. Typically, if you get a low score, you might want to go get your memory checked if you feel that you're really having a lot of these issues all the time. Anything above a 40, you're completely normal and fine. That's what people tend to report. But it's a quick little screen. We do in the in-person class, we give this twice. And we always see that people score themselves pretty hard the first time. So give yourself some grace and just take this, at your leisure. But that is one way to measure your memory. The other way we measure memory is what we call a memory check. And we're going to do this as a group. So I'm going to put on the screen 12 words. Okay. And you're going to have 2 minutes to study them. Can't write them down. Can't take a picture. You're just going to study them. And you're going to study them in any order. There's no particular order. I've got someone coming in. There's no order to remember these words. So what I suggest is you look at the 12 words, read them through, kind of figure out if there's any similarities, if there's a story you could create, if there's some way you could remember the 12 words. So you'll have 2 minutes to study them, and then we'll move on. Okay, everybody good? All right, this is completely honor system. All right, so I'm going to put them up, and I'll put my clock on. Can y'all see them? All right. And can you mute yourselves? Because some people like to say them over and over. And I'll start. So make sure you mute. Okay, go.
Hello.
Webster, Texas on May 7th.
Okay. Okay. Now hold on to those words. We're going to take 20 minutes. All right. And then we'll come back to them. All right. So I'm going to put my clock on for 20 minutes. Now, this doesn't mean you can't listen to anything I'm going to say between now and 20 minutes. Okay. So what we're going to learn now is the 3 tools that you should have in your memory toolkit. You remember that show Tool Time? Tim Taylor or whatever, he had that tool belt. I want you to visualize your tool belt. And on your memory tool belt, you need the following strategies. The first one we've already talked about. Pay attention. It's that simple. It is that simple. We have to focus on what we want to remember. We just have to be more dutiful. Paying attention is the first step in creating a new memory. When you pay attention, you're going to use all your senses. That's why it's so, so important. If you are visually impaired or hearing impaired, you must get your corrective, because that means you're already at a deficit. So important to keep our eyes and our ears working. We have to pay attention. And when you're around new information, ask yourself, what could this look like? What does it sound like? What could it smell like? You're just really trying to be mindful of the new information. All of this if you bring in senses, it just helps you process at a deeper level, in a more meaningful level. Now, paying attention is the first tool in your memory toolkit. Your second tool is making associations. Form associations. This comes very natural to people. For example, the names. In class, I tend to use child stars of the 70s or movie stars of the 70s, because that's when I was watching a lot of TV. And so I've had Carol Brady in the room. I've had everybody from Gilligan's Island in the class. I mean, I've had them all. So I go to movie stars, and that's my associations. That's very, very powerful. And what's great about an association is it's something you already know. You already know that. So all you're doing is meeting somebody and putting an association with it right away. That's something you know. This third tool in your toolkit is creating those visual images. And it's those visual images that's going to help you retrieve the information. So for example, on your errands, you need to mail a letter to your friend. Well, you could have a visual image of your friend on the mailbox. Your friend sitting on the mailbox, so that when you get to the post office, you know what you need to do. It triggers you. It's that wacky kind of outlandish image that will help you remember that. Same for a phone call. Say you need to make a phone call to your doctor. Well, just have your doctor on the phone, or put the picture of the doctor on your phone. I mean, it's those kinds of images that will help you trigger what you need to do. And you just hold that image for a second or two. Just hold it and take a snapshot. And then the beauty of it is once you've done your job, you can dump the information. You do not need to hold on to that anymore. Okay. So I always use the example, I have a daughter that's really into fashion. She works for a designer here in town. And boy, she's in my ear telling me all the latest fashion, from the labels to the designers and what I need to be wearing and everything. And when I'm with her, I'm like, I am extremely in the moment present. But you know what? I don't hold on to any of it because I don't care enough to hold on to any of it. But because there are other things I need to be more worried about right now. Well, maybe when I'm not working, I'll be more mindful of that, but I can only hold 7 bits of information, remember? So I'm very particular about what I'm holding. And that is that's interesting to me in the moment, but I've given myself permission to let that go and hold on to what's important to me. So, but she doesn't need to know that, but that's okay. So that's an example. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to run through some examples of how to do this. Let me find my mouse. Okay, let me share my screen here. Okay, so we just went through, this is what you need to have on your memory toolkit. Pay attention, form associations, create visual images. Okay, so for this first exercise, I'm going to show you a picture of a man, and I want you to study it for just a minute. And I want you to take in as much of the information as you can, because I'll ask you some questions about it. So here you go. So study my man. Okay, so what was the man's appearance?
He was sitting.
He was sitting. What was he holding?
Umbrella.
Umbrella.
And what was in front of him?
Can on
can.
the ground.
And coin.
Okay, and could you tell what kind of scene it was?
The street.
Mm-hmm.
In a plaza or something like that.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of year? What time of year?
Summer.
And you knew that because of the
Shorts.
Did anybody see the writing? Did anybody make out what?
It must have been in a German-speaking country.
Yeah. So it's in Austria, and it was one of those living mines.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, but that is just an example of paying attention. That's just really focusing in on what you want to remember. So that's one example. Okay, so moving on to associations. Let me share my screen again. I'm going to give you an example of this one. So this one's fun. So say that you have a new neighbor and his name is Mr. Burger. What association do you already know so that when you see your new neighbor, you're going to remember his name?
Burger King.
Ah, a Burger King. So you're going to see your neighbor with the crown. Anybody else have another one?
My ex next door neighbor was burger.
What's that?
My ex neighbor was a burger.
Oh, okay. Well, so you could remember him through your ex neighbor. Yes. So it's just, you could just remember your new neighbor as a hamburger. And you could see him walking down the street, always eating a hamburger. But that's an example of an association. You already know that. So you already know that. That's why it's so powerful. And our friends in the advertising industry have known this for years. That's why if I said plop, plop, fizz, fizz, you all know what that is. Another one is, let's get Mikey, he'll eat anything. Or, I can't just eat one. So, I mean, it's the same idea. They're just using those phrases. So you have those associations. Very, very powerful associations, very powerful. And then the last example of our memory toolkit is, let me see if I can, I guess this one didn't go. You see this already, don't you? That one didn't. Okay. Well, the whole idea of this one is to visualize a tulip and to kind of break it down and create some wild image when you say the word tulip. So you could remember like a dozen tulips, and you could say tulips, and that doesn't make any sense. But the wackier and the more creative you make your images, the more likely you are to remember them. So that's just kind of a way to break that down. So we're going to put it all together with this exercise, and this is called what we call the picture method. So you have 2 errands to do on your to-do list. You need to get a key made. You have to get a key made, okay? The second thing on your list is I need to cut the tree. I need to cut my tree down. So that's what you need to do tomorrow. So what kind of image, what kind of wacky visual image could you put together so that instead of, writing it on your phone, you could think, okay, I need to get a key made and I need to cut the tree down. Anybody have an idea?
You could pretend that the key is a saw.
Yes.
Saw the tree.
Yes. You all remember the Keebler elves?
Mm-hmm.
And then anybody else have another image? What could you do with those keys in the tree?
I visualized a skeleton key because the tree is going to be smaller.
Okay, very good. So these are 2 types. Not everybody has the same image, that's for sure. But like you're right, this is, sawing it down, or you could have the keys be the leaves. Just a crazy idea. I will tell you that I use this a lot for my errands. I also use this method a lot for remembering names. So for example, I have 2 neighbors, 2 young families moved in at the same time. And I wanted very much to be intentional on knowing their names. And so one of my neighbors, their name, and I didn't do last names, Lexi and Fletch are the 2, they were the first couple, Lexi and Fletch, kind of different names. Well, for me, I used to drive a Ford Flex. So my Ford Flex is in their driveway every day. It's just sitting down there. Even in my mind, it's just sitting down there. But that's how I remember Lexi and Fletch. My other new neighbor, young couple moved in. Their names were Courtney and Brian. They live at the end of the street. And I thought, what am I going to do with those names? Well, I put a courthouse at the end of the street, and Brian is always in court. And they even have a dog named Blue. So I even got 3. So I use that a lot, and it helps with my, I tell you, another great place it helps you, and we'll go over this right now, is parking the car. So say, for example, you have to, let's say you parked your car on level 3B. Okay, now I don't know how many of you have been out to the airport lately, but it's a mess at George Bush. All right. And so, instead of running around with the flicker and the fob trying to find your car, or you take a picture, there are other ways to remember where you park. So say you parked on 3B, what visual image could you quickly put together? I see Kathy doing something.
Imagining 3 bees flying around.
Yeah, 3 Bs. That's right. Something like that. 3 Bs. Does anybody else have another one? Can anybody come up with a 3B that's personal to them that they could think of?
I might think of the car with bees painted on it.
Yep, very good. Like the number B or the letter B or bees.
Or we were thinking 3 babies,
3 what?
3 babies.
Oh, 3
We have
babies.
we have 3
Yeah.
kids, so.
Well, so one lady said she has 3 boys. So she's like, oh, that's easy for me. I've got 3 boys. Yeah. And I tell you, this is again back to feeling confident. This is such a big, I mean, I don't know. I've seen people south of 50 running around the parking, places not being able to find. And I'm like, why are you doing that now? You guys are way too young for that. But they're just running around with their key fobs. So this actually happened to me at the airport. We were leaving for a trip. I'm one of 5. I have 5 in my family, and I had to park in that brown lot. I don't like the brown. I've always liked to be C terminal blue, but there's all the overflow. So I had to be in brown. So I was already mad about that. And the little guy came with his trolley, and we parked on 5D, the 5th floor, and it was D. And the little guy came with his trolley and he said, well, ma'am, do you want to take a picture of your car? This guy's 30 and he's asking me, you want to take a picture of your car? And I said, no. And of course, my whole family's looking at me like, how are you going to remember, and I'm like, no worries. I said, we're on 5D. My last name's Davis and there's 5 of us. I think I can remember that. And I'm at Brown. I'm not happy about being at Brown. So but again, you're just empowered. I just was like, no, I don't need to do that. So those are things we used to do before we had phones. We used to do those things. But now we just let ourselves get a little lazy. So it's very empowering. So, okay, so it's time now to go back
Ellie?
to those 12 words. Yes.
Oh gosh, just in
Sorry,
time.
as I mentioned earlier, we have to leave at 7. I look forward to seeing the recording tomorrow and just want to say thank you before we signed off.
Okay,
Really
well, you let me know how many
awesome.
words y'all remember.
I was just gonna say, our timing is perfect.
We're not leaving because of
Thanks,
those words.
guys. Bye-bye. Okay, so what I would like you to do is take a piece of paper and a pencil, and you're going to take 2 minutes. And please mute yourselves because people do like to talk out loud. I'm one of those. And I'd like you to recall as many of the words as you can recall. And I'm going to put my little timer on. And okay, 2 minutes. Ready? Go. Okay, so let's get the word. You can turn your page over and see how, oh, let me get the screen. Let me show you, see, so you can see how many you recalled. See the words and then count up how many you remembered, you were able to recall. Okay, has everybody got a, all right. So did anybody remember 6 or more? 7 or more? Okay, what about 10? Okay, and then what about all 12? Ah, okay. All right, Kathy, can you share with us what your technique was? And you're on mute.
Okay. Well, you're talking about using visualization or visual. And when I did that other test, I was like 6 out of my, I was totally visual. So I made up 2 little stories.
Yeah.
So I went all in. So, okay, I'm going to pay attention and make a whole outline. So I had this banker walking in the rain across a plank, and he was holding a saucer and an umbrella to keep himself from getting wet. And then there was this, thinking, well, I had that reptile and it came up and hit him in the abdomen. And then I started thinking about food, and I thought, oh, I got to tie the lobster somehow with the crustacean and the reptile. And then I thought, well, the guy really wanted to be in the orchestra versus a banker. So that's how I did the first section. And then the last bit, I had a whole other little story that there was a jury trial and a foreman, but they had a fire and they ran out of time and had the clock. So I did a whole little.
You did, yes. And I can guarantee you that if we met next week, you would still remember that story.
Yeah, I really tried hard. And now I'm hoping I'm not the most annoying person on the thing.
Yeah, the creating stories, very powerful. And again, it doesn't come easy to everybody, but you do have to be intentional. But you also, not only did you create the story, but you kind of did what we're going to learn more about is grouping. You took a whole nother set and made a whole nother kind of story out of it. So did anybody use another technique or share with us how you remembered? Laura, I think you had 12.
I did a story, but I incorporated them somehow in the whole story.
All the words.
Yeah.
Well, go on. Let us hear.
Oh my gosh. So there was the orchestra was playing while the fire was happening, but at the time of, when I thought time of, clock pops in my head, when the jury pronounced the banker guilty, who was carrying an umbrella and had a fat belly, so there's the abdomen, and to walk across the plank, carrying his saucer and umbrella, and had his reptile, but then I just called the lobster the reptile, even though it's not a reptile. Oh, and I would forget the last one and I go, oh, forehead. Yeah.
Forehead. Oh, yes. Oh, silly me. Awesome. Thank you. Did any of you 10 or more, how you remembered, how you recall? Did you use a technique of any kind? Associations? Did anybody use associations?
I did.
Okay.
But I didn't get the bad part that I've discovered. The pitfall was that I tied the jury, the clock, and the fire all together and then forgot the entire association. So I was stuck at 9.
That's still good. That's great.
Yeah, but that shows the better thing to do maybe is to do the whole story.
Well, it's just what comes easy to you. Some people group items, and we're going to do some more grouping comes very natural to people and very familiar. But again, your short-term memory is 7 bits. You know, if you recalled 7 or more, you were right there. You're exercising that short-term memory. And the story creation allowed you to remember 12. It was, you know, that's how we enhance the short-term memory. So if you're all sitting there wondering, why am I doing this? You know, I have a phone, I can take pictures, I can do everything on my phone. Again, it's exercising your brain. I just want you to think of your brain as a muscle. And if, you know, if we can, it will result in better retention if we exercise our brains and try. If we have a shopping list, it's okay to write it down, but maybe you try to remember 5 items on your own. And then you can compare later. But anyway, it's just important to try to use some techniques. Okay, so we're going to move on. Thank you for doing that. We're going to do some more work with names and faces. Okay, so this is an exercise. Again, names and faces do tend to get us a little more problematic as we get older. As I said, you know, spelling the word, spelling the name is very helpful. Say you have a friend that's her name's Rosa, you know, you could think of rosy cheeks, or somebody's name's Sylvia, silver hair, because sometimes we meet people that are different names. They're not names we normally hear. So for example, the 5 names up here: Carolyn Cornelius, Ike Garland, Fabio Campa, Frank Marinelli, and Wendy Nakamura. Those are all the people that are at your new association. Well, you really want to remember them the next week. So what I want you to do, I'll give you about 3 minutes, and I'd like you to jot down, like, how would you remember Carolyn Cornelius? What could you do image-wise to remember Ike Garland? What could you come up with a story maybe about Fabio? How would you remember Fabio? How would you remember Frank Marinelli? So again, you're confident. You walk in there and you know who they are. So I'll give you about 3 minutes and we'll share how we're going to remember these people, what associations we're going to create. So I'm going to put this on 3 minutes and you can go. Okay. So who wants to share with the group how they're going to remember next week Carolyn Cornelius? What kind of image?
A corny song.
A corny song. Yeah, I love that. For Carolyn Cornelius. Yeah.
How about a line of cars, which are each a corn cob?
Ah, you must be
I
from the
like that.
Midwest. Are you from the Midwest, Charles?
No, sorry,
Because all my Midwestern people put a corn.
but it's Cornelius, so.
I love it. I love it. That's how you would remember Carolyn Cornelius. Does anybody else have a image or association?
Yep, I just,
Caroling eyeball,
What'd you say?
a caroling eyeball, the cornea.
Oh, that's great. I've never heard that one. Love it.
I
think-
decided, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was thinking of calling her Carolyn Cornelius Vanderbilt.
Mhm.
There you go. Very good. Anybody else?
Well, mine
Yeah,
is much simpler. So Carolyn was my college roommate. So Carolyn would be a name I would hang on to. And then the second name, her last name also began with a C. So I think with the Carolyn, I would be able to bring the Cornelius back also.
Perfect. Yep. And so that's personal to you. So immediately you had a connection.
Well, I was
And-
going back to you're talking about names or something in the 60s or 70s, and I was thinking of all things War Christmas and the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer thing, because they had Carol, that was like
Yeah.
a Christmas Carol.
A
And
Christmas
the character in there was Yukon Cornelius, the big
Well,
guy.
there you
with the-
go.
So I was like, okay, Christmas. And I
You
had it
got that. Very good. Very good.
weird.
Did anybody use the Cornelius Nursery in
Yes.
Houston?
Me.
Joyce? Yeah, I have a lot of Christmas trees at Cornelius. Caroling at Cornelius. Yes, very good. Okay. So what about Ike Garland? How would you remember Ike Garland next week? Yes, Chris.
Well, Ike for Eisenhower.
Right.
I was thinking political figures
Right.
and Merrick Garland.
And Merrick Garland. Yeah,
Yeah.
very good.
Well, I also used Ike for president, but I thought when he arrived someplace, they might put a garland around his neck. So
There
Ike
you
Garland.
go.
That's
Ike,
great.
yeah, Ike with a garland. Yeah, yeah, that's good.
I
Mhm.
thought of something different. I thought of Hurricane Ike and what it
Yeah.
did. To us.
Oh,
I thought Hurricane Ike left a garland of seaweed on the beach.
Perfect. Yes, I get a lot of Ike Dykes
Good.
and Hurricane Ike. Very good. Yep. Very good. Okay. What about Fabio Campa?
That one's easy.
Oh, yes,
Fabio
Anita.
Fabio from the romance novels is Campa.
Yeah. There you go. There you go. Fabio Campa. Yes. Anybody else?
Well, for those of us that did not read romance novels growing up, how about fabulous camp? You go to a camp and it's fabulous.
There you go. So you would meet this person and you'd be like, okay, Fabio Campa, fabulous camp. Yep.
I thought
Very
of the same
good.
thing about a camp. So campa, a tent, you take a tent camping, a tent is made out of material or fabric. So fabric, Fabio, campa.
There you go. I've had an attendee a play on the camping and it was Fabio would not be camping.
oh,
That's pretty funny. Okay, Frank Marinelli.
Oh, that's easy. It's Italian.
Very Italian. Yes.
Very
I
yes.
frank, yeah. I frankly
thought-
love Marinelli sauce.
There you go. I frankly love Marinelli sauce. See, boy, you guys are clever.
I thought of honest spaghetti. Big-
Honest spaghetti. Okay, I love that.
You see myself like saying, hello, honest.
I thought of marinating a Frank.
Yes.
I did too on
marinating
that
a
one.
Frank. I
Yeah.
mean, that is not something we would do, but it would work. It would work.
What
Okay,
about
what about the,
a
yes, Charles?
marine eating a hot dog?
A Marine eating
Being
a
a
hot
Frank.
dog. Very good. That is very
Mm-hmm.
clever. Yes. And his name could be Frank, that Marine. Hopefully it is Frank. Okay, Wendy Nakamura.
I thought the blowing wind. I live up here in the Panhandle, and I visualized the naked for Nakamura.
Yes.
the wind
Yes, I have heard that a lot. Yes, yes, yes.
Really?
Blowing in the wind. Yep.
I thought of George Nakamura, the great artisan in wood, or the artist of wood. And I thought windy because he always tried to create movement. You know, his lamps and his furniture shows the wood grain.
Ah,
So
very
windy
good.
Nakamura.
So that's how you could remember Wendy. Okay. Anybody else have another one?
Well, again, Nakamura, we have family friends who are Nakamura, so that would
Oh.
not be an unusual name. And then it just struck me at the beginning, Wendy seems an unusual name to go with Nakamura. So I just thought, well, I thought of Wendy's too, but I couldn't come up with a good association other than that. Nakamura's like to eat at Wendy's would be another.
Yeah, there you go. Wendy's hamburger. There you go. There you go. Another idea is Wendy knocking more. Wendy, W-I-N-D-Y, knocking more. That's good. But you guys did great. So that is a technique you can use if you're at a networking event and you really want to know the names, really trying to be focused. There's other techniques you can do too that we'll chat about, and I'm sure some of you know these. But another way to remember somebody is to repeat the name during the conversation. It's nice to meet you, Chris. It's, Marianne, your lipstick is beautiful tonight, or you compliment them, but you say their name repeatedly. And we did this when we were introducing ourselves. Ask, how do you spell the name if it's unusual? Because all you're trying to do is give yourself more information to remember. So how would you spell that? And you're just trying to stall the whole process down so that you can grab something. My salespeople over the years I've taught this, they always tell me they took a business card and they would write down one or two things right away about the person. And then they would memorize that and refer to that. So when they met the person again, they would know. Visualize, for those of us that are visual learners, visualize how the name is spelled. Think about how it's spelled. That will help you. Another very powerful technique is comment on the name. Oh gosh, like I think it was you, Connie, I had a friend named the Nakamuras. That you're commenting on that name. So you're automatically just already cementing that. So comment on the name, learn something about what they do, a former occupation, or where they go to church, or what part of town do they live in? I mean, all you're trying to do, or where they're from originally. I tend to do that when I meet people because I've lived many places and I try to glean onto something. And I do it by geography. So learn about the person. Where are they from? What did they do? Where did they pray? what part of town are you in? And then another powerful technique is say the name as you're saying goodbye. Say the name out loud, because everybody loves to hear their name said. So you're saying their name out loud. And then also as you're leaving, say it again. Saying things out loud, again, this is for our auditory people, is very powerful. So saying that out loud is very, very powerful. Those are just some other tricks you can do to try to remember names because it gets, we are bombarded with so many different people. And we want to feel like we know people. Again, it's all wanting to be confident when we're in these social situations. So does anybody else have a technique that they've used over the years? No. Okay. All right. So we're going to move on. And we are going to go to our, the second exercise on our handout. And we're going to do some more visual imaging. So we are going to use, we're going to put some more things together. So this is an idea of on your to-do list for tomorrow, you need to buy paper clips and you need to bring a pie to a potluck. What could you do to remember when you go to the HEB, I need to get paper clips and I need to buy a pie? What kind of image association could you do, put together? Anybody have an idea?
A pie made of paper clips.
A pie made of paper clips, something like that?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so you would just hold, you could put that image together just like you have the 3 Bs where your car is. You just have a pie with paper clips and you're going to hold on to that image instead of writing it down. And then once you get it done, you can dump it. You don't need this image anymore, but that's just going to retrieve, it's going to retrieve what you need to know right there. You know, the pie and the paper clips. So on your handout are some more items to do. So you have to replace the AA battery in the smoke detector and order a chocolate raspberry birthday cake. You need to order a part for your washing machine and cancel your hair appointment. And you need to buy cat food and water the garden. And then put a spare pair of shoes in your car and take a bag of bottles to the recyclers. So what I want you to do is just pick two of those that you'd like to kind of form some kind of mental image, 2 of those pairings, and put together, you know, for the first one, replace the AA batteries. I would probably focus on the AA batteries because there's so many types of batteries on the market now. And then something with the cake, something with those batteries and the cake. And then the second one hangs the order a part for the washing machine, cancel your hair appointment. So your task is to come up with some mental image, some association, instead of writing it down, that when you're out doing your errands, you can collect these things and get this done. So I'll give you about 2 minutes to think about some things and we'll share that. Okay, is everybody clear? And just pick 2, just pick 2. Okay, so let me stop sharing. And does anybody have an association or an image for the first one? You need to buy a AA battery and order a chocolate birthday cake, raspberry.
I visualized a battery operated cake.
A battery operated cake. Love it. Love it.
Wow.
Great. Does anybody else have another image? A lot of people put the AA batteries as candles. Okay, did anybody have an image for order a part for the washing machine and cancel haircut appointment?
I did. I just imagined washing my hair in the washing machine, which would of course break the machine. So, and
Absolutely.
I wouldn't be able to go get a haircut and I would need a new part.
There you go. Definitely. Awesome. Very good. And then what about
What about putting your cut hair into the washing machine? Visualize
oh,
pouring
yeah.
cut hair.
Yeah, I'm feeling that visual.
A
Yeah.
horrible thought. So
Terrible thought, but yes, very good. What about buy cat food and water the garden?
The cat scratching hard dirt in the garden,
The cat scratching dirt.
in the garden, which says the cat's hungry and so they're eating dirt.
They're eating dirt. Oh my gosh, yes. Oh, that's great. Anybody else have another one?
I visualized a watering can made out of a cat food.
There you go. Yeah, very good. Or the hose with cat food coming out of it. Yep, that's good. And then lastly, put a spare pair of shoes in the car and take a bag of bottles to the recycler.
Well, I thought of putting my rubber garden shoes in the car because the recycler is very close to my favorite garden shop.
There
And
you go.
do that when I'm done with the other two chores.
There you go. Awesome. Okay. Well, so you're going to carry those ideas, those images with you until you get it done. And the whole idea is the wackier and outlandish, the more you're going to remember them. And again, it just exercises your brain. So thank you for doing that. Okay, so moving on, the last technique to teach, and this is the one that comes very familiar to most people. This is called grouping. We group things automatically. For example, making out a grocery list. How do you make your grocery lists out?
By aisle.
You do it by aisle. Yes, I've heard that a lot.
Types of stuff, all frozen stuff together, fruit
Okay.
together.
So your category is frozen and then all of your items are in that category. Does anybody else have other categories?
Fruit? No, not fruit. Let's see. It would be, the first thing would be meat. The second thing would be dairy. The third thing would be frozen food, canned food, household.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so what we're doing is we're taking a large list, right? And we're putting it in categories. And it's the category that's going to recall us for the items. All right. So that's what we're doing. People do, and we group things that are familiar to each other. They're like things. So that's why it becomes very easy for us. So I'm going to put up again 12 words. And your goal in 2 minutes is to come up with the categories and what items will go in those categories. Okay. So my suggestion is to look at the 12 words, look them over, first find your categories, and then put your items. And you're going to remember them by the category name. That's what's going to trigger you. So I'm going to put up 12 words, and again, don't write them down, don't take a picture, and we will look at these. Okay, ready, go.
We don't have anything.
Oh, sorry.
I don't see anything.
Don't test
Is
our
that
memory.
better? There we
Not
go.
yet.
You don't see it?
No.
Oh, it's on my screen. You don't see 12 words?
Nope.
What do
We
you
It's a
don't
see?
see
blank category.
You'll need to share the screen.
Oh,
Did you
I
hit?
haven't shared the screen?
Right.
Okay, let me share again.
There we go.
Okay, sorry about that.
The wrong list.
12
There we go.
words?
Yeah, now we see it.
There we go. Thank you.
Hammer, rack, bolt, nail, wrench, hammer, hammer, bracket, hammer, bolt, bat, no, hammer, bolt, nail, wrench.
Okay.
Can
that-
we mute, everybody mute themselves, please? Okay. All right. So next I want you to turn the page over and write down as many of the words you remember. And start with your categories, and then it'll trigger you for your items. Okay. How did we do? Did anybody remember 7? Did anybody remember 10 or more? And then how many remember 12? And what were your categories?
The tools, the salad makings, and the tools to play sports.
Sports. Okay, very good. Did anybody have different categories?
Well, what about sports, food, tools? Those seem like the obvious ones.
Yep. Very good. Anybody, because some people don't see categories all the same. I had one lady, she did it all by stores, Home Depot.
Oh.
Academy, and HEB. So everybody has different ways of doing it. But again, but that is but by grouping, that is a classic way you've increased from 7 bits of information. And you did it by remembering the categories. And it's the categories that are going to help trigger you. And I had one attendee, his categories were fun, food, and fix it. So very short and clever. And that's kind of the idea, is you want to make it easy for you so that you can remember. So those are all the different techniques to exercise your brain. And in addition to what I taught you, it is also very important that we discuss a little bit about the memory habits, because I want you to think about, we have to stay organized as we get older. We have to develop good memory habits. And that is where we can use our phone to help us. We can set alarms on our phones to remind us of appointments, medication, etc. That's fine. However, I don't recommend you set 14 alarms. We must, that is not good. But we can use the alarm on our phone to help us. Also, another really great habit is a calendar. Some type of calendar, whether you're old school and you keep the pencil in the calendar, or you totally are on your iPhone calendar. But what's important about the calendar is you must check it at the same time every day. You must build that in to, just like brushing your teeth, taking your medicine. You either check it when you first wake up or you check it before you go to bed. But the calendar is very important, to keep a calendar. And all of those, remembering appointments, the key to that, a good habit, is do something about it at the time. So if you're taking an appointment, if you're on the phone and your doctor's called and they've scheduled you an appointment, you write it down right then and there. Because if you think you can go through the day and do that later, it's not going to work. We have to take care of the information now. And that's just so crucial to really stop and pause and write it down. And I'm all about sticky notes. We all love, everybody loves sticky notes. But what I caution about the sticky notes and the to-do list is, if you're writing sticky notes to remember your to-do list, that's a different deal. That's a whole nother level. But we have to be very mindful about these habits, doing these. Another great habit is, say you have an appointment somewhere new, Google it the night before, do a map quest the night before. I've had attendees tell me that they go even do a trial run. They get in their car and they go figure it out. That's okay. That's okay. You'd rather show up on time and not stressed, because stress is not our friend as we get older. So do another great habit. Say you're going to a networking event, say you're going to a church outing, a family reunion, and you want to remember as many people there as possible. Call the host. Who's going to be there? Use the Evite. Those Evites where it says who's going to show up. Use that to your advantage. Use that, because we all need these aids to help us in habits. So again, that we're confident when we show up. So very, very helpful. So really, really try to get those habits together. In addition to forming habits, especially if you're living with someone, you must have memory places. You must, in your home, designate, where am I going to put my keys? Where am I going to put my phone? Where's my wallet, purse going to go? Where are my glasses going to go? And the reason that's so important is, again, say you're running late for an appointment. If you are running around trying to find where your keys and your wallet, glasses, you're just gonna stress yourself out, and you're never gonna find those items, and you're gonna be late. So it's really important we have what we call memory places. The remote is a really big one. You know, for some reason, when the phone rings and we're watching TV, we have to put the remote down, and then we get off the phone and we have no idea where we put the remote. You know, or same with the glasses. For some reason, we pick up the phone and we take our glasses off, and we don't know where we don't know where we put them. A very powerful technique is to be mindful before you pick up that phone and you say, I'm putting my glasses here. And you say it out loud. I'm putting the remote here. And you say it out loud. And saying it out loud is so powerful. You're especially for us auditory people, because you're being intentional. And then when you're off the phone, you know where your items are. The same goes with you know, you're in bed for the night and you're like, did I lock the doors? You know, did I take my medicine on time? You know, all these, did I turn the stove off after you've left the house? I mean, nobody wants to double back. So what you do is you, again, say it out loud. I'm turning the stove off. I am locking the door. And you're hearing it and you're saying it. Very, very powerful. Very powerful. So remember to do that. And then walking into a room, someone mentioned, I walk into the room and I have no idea. The best strategy for that is to walk out and start over again. Because what's happened is in the room that you remembered, I need to go pick up a book, you know, say the living room, okay, I got to pick up the book. But it's when you cross the threshold into the new room, you got distracted. So you now don't know why you're in that room. Something distracted you. So you go back. And when you go back to the room where you first had the thought, it is there. It's there. So again, it's back to being distracted. That is the most powerful technique. Retrace your steps. And then lastly, very common, and I'm very personal about this, and that's that tip of the tongue. You know, you're with a group of people and you can't remember the Netflix series that you've been watching for the last 5 nights. We call that tip of the tongue. It's happening to all of us. And quite simply, it does come back to you, right? You do remember. When do you remember?
Later.
Later at night, right? As soon as you left the party, you remember. So I always jokingly tell people, you know, especially if you're with your kids, text them immediately and say, hey, I remember. And then, you know, they can say, mom's doing fine. But seriously, it's so common. And truly why that's happening is we're stressed. We're just stressed and we're anxious. The older we get more anxious when we're in social situations, especially with friends and family. So we just get anxious and we just get stressed. So it's just, again, if that's happening to you, you simply say, you know what? I don't remember right now, but when I do, I'll get back to you. And just by saying that, you have allowed yourself, you've humbled yourself, you've been very honest and transparent. The information will come. It will be there. It'll be right there. Because all it is stress. It's just anxiety. And what you do for your friends, say your friend is experiencing that. Say you're in a group and your friend's trying to recall something, you simply touch them and you say, you know what? You're going to remember. And when you do, call me. Let me know. Simple as that. And just that act of grace and kindness your friend will be able to remember, because you've just released all their anxiety, because the anxiety is, I can't remember right now. And I'll tell you the difference between my people at Amazing Place. They will not keep searching for the information because they have no short-term memory to do that. So if you are still like trying to find your car when you walk out of HEB, or if you're still trying to remember the Netflix series, that's okay. That's good. Because you're still trying, you still know that you didn't finish. You still have some information to give out. So that's quite simply the tip of the tongue. We have to use our words. I'm very sensitive to it because the last thing I want anybody to do is to retreat and withdraw. That's the worst thing you can do. So actually being interactive is the highest form of mental capability and cognition, because somebody's talking and you have to form a reply. That is that's the most highest level of cognition. So we want to stay talking. We want to stay social. We don't want to retreat because of this. This is happening to all of us. And we simply give our friends grace and we give ourselves grace, because you will remember. I have a friend I walk with. This just happened to me. I have a friend I walk with 2 days a week. And she asked me about a neighbor that used to live in my neighborhood. And I said, you know what? I don't remember her name, but I will, and I'll get back to you. Sure enough, I remembered her name. Next day or next 2 days, we were walking and I said, I remember my neighbor's name, but I don't know why you needed it. So, you got to help each other out. And that's another thing. If you find, help people out. I mean, it's okay to talk around. I mean, Amazing Place, we're playing charades all day. I mean, it's okay to, describe it, talk about something else about the person, if it's a name or a place. That's quite all right. Quite all right. So that is what we use for tip of the tongue. So I am at 7:58. I made it in 2 hours. Y'all were great. So does everybody live in Clear Lake? I know, Marianne, you mentioned you're in the Panhandle.
Right. I live 50 miles northwest of Amarillo on a ranch.
Oh my gosh, are you in the middle? So we drove one time from Amarillo up to, we were going to Colorado. I guess you're in that kind of area.
Right.
Wow. Well, I'm glad you got to join this.
Oh, I'm so glad I am still getting the newsletter and found out about this.
What's so fun. That's what's so fun about the virtual, was being able to connect so many people virtually. It's great.
And it's great to see you, Marianne.
Great to see y'all too. They're new faces, but lots of familiar. I want to memory. Those are long-term memories.
That's right. Those are what we're comforted by.
Now, Sally, can I sort of emphasize something you said earlier?
Yeah, sure.
I found a long time ago that, like, for instance, where are my keys? Where is my phone? The harder I try to think of where it is, the more impossible it is to remember. So frequently in that situation, I'll try to just really totally clear my mind and not think about anything at all. I mean, totally clear my mind. And then frequently the key is, oh yeah, sure. It's over by the TV. So
yeah,
the harder you try, the more difficult it is to remember.
That's exactly right. And it's stress. We just cannot, we get anxious, and we just have to, like you said, take a deep breath. And now the other little kind of secret as we get older is we're not very good at multitasking. So we have to let that go. We have to let that go. We're just not very good at it as we get older. So we have to let some of this go. You guys were great. I'm going to stop the recording right now.